All the breaking news. The chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff of California, is joining us. Mr. Chairman, thanks so much for joining us. Let me start with your reaction to the White House now raising new concerns about the potential for a Russian biological or chemical attack in Ukraine. Have you seen any evidence the Russians are actually planning such an attack?
I can't comment on the intelligence, Wolf, but I think that this is all too tragically a part of Russian tradecraft. When they start talking about an adversary using biological weapons, using chemical weapons, it may be their way of creating this false flag operation, this pretext, this propaganda that they're going to use to justify their own use of these weapons. So it's deeply alarming. Obviously, we're keeping a very close eye out to see whether the Russians, in fact, go forward and use this kind of a false flag approach. It's another escalation by Putin and another tragic sign that Putin is doubling down after suffering such heavy battlefield losses.
Do you have any doubt, Mr. Chairman, that Putin would actually be willing to use chemical or biological weapons at some point?
I don't doubt it at all, tragically. I mean, he's already demonstrated his willingness to do that. Of course, he has used chemical weapons to poison people on foreign soil. So it's not at all beyond his evil capacity to use these in these conflicts. Someone who is bombing maternity hospitals is going to stop at nothing.
The Russians have made some gains in their push toward Kyiv, the capital, in recent days. U.S. intelligence was initially wrong, apparently, about how quickly the capital, Kyiv, would fall to the Russians. Is there an updated assessment, as far as you know, as to how long the capital can actually hold out?
Well, you know, I think one of the difficult things for intelligence agencies to assess is the will of a people to fight. And, of course, this was a big issue in Afghanistan very recently. But what we're seeing in Ukraine is there's a tremendous will among the Ukrainian people to fight. And for that reason, they are holding off the Russians and doing so beyond our expectation. I think also we've been surprised by how incompetent much of the Russian military seems to be. Their basic logistical problems, their failure to coordinate. So these have been surprises that inure to the benefit of Ukraine. But it's always been, I think, the assessment that Russia has overwhelming military superiority. And if they're willing to press it long enough and hard enough, they will overtake Ukrainian defenses. But that doesn't mean they win. It just means they get further bogged down. And this is the terrible tragedy of what's going on in Ukraine, which is there's no apparent exit ramp for Vladimir Putin. He's headed for a strategic defeat, but at the cost of so many civilian lives.
Yeah, that's the key point. A lot of civilians, men, women, and children, are going to be dying in Ukraine over the next several days as the Russians attempt to move closer and closer towards Kyiv. The U.S. and NATO, as you know, Mr. Chairman, they continue to refuse Ukraine's desperate pleas to establish what's called a no-fly zone over Ukraine. Do you worry the United States could look back, let's say a year from now, and wish that the U.S. had done more and done it sooner?
Well, you know, it's heartbreaking to see what's going on, and I understand the fervent desire of Ukraine that we impose a no-fly zone, and I think many Americans watch those images, and it's just heartbreaking. I worry more, honestly, Wolf, though, of getting into a shooting war with Russia, and that the incredible tragedy that would represent. And so I think the administration is trying to help Ukraine in every way it can. We in Congress are doing the same. Without crossing the line and getting into a hot war with Russia between the United States and Russia, two nuclear powers. I think probably the most pressing need that we can fill is trying to help Ukraine with its air defenses. And I've been urging the administration, as others, and I know they're acting on this, to try to find the munitions that Ukraine needs to shoot down Russian aircraft. I also favor a way of finding a way to get those Polish aircraft to Ukraine. And I'd like to see us solve that problem and do so quickly.
Yeah, the Ukrainian leadership, President Zelensky and others, they're pleading for that kind of assistance. Congressman Adam Schiff, as usual, thank you so much for joining us. Adam Schiff, the chairman of the Intelligence Committee.